I felt like I have this huge mission to do, and if I don't deal with my own demons, I'm never going to be able to achieve the purpose that God created me for. Because Israel was attacked by a barrage of rockets from Hamas, and it was the first time that I remembered seeing on social media my peers, my fellow influencers, celebrities out there posting this vicious propaganda and lies about Israel. That's when everything just took a turn. Am I going to do this? Well, how can I not? But then it was the question of how am I going to make money? It didn't feel really like a choice. It felt like a calling. And everything blew up. I started booking speeches right and left. I knew there was going to be consequences. I got dropped by that management company. Death threats.
Keep thinking you're safe.
I hit my rock bottom with my alcoholism. I ended up getting sober, thank God. All I did was live my truth out loud.
Without Israel, I don't even know who I am.
You will never achieve the level of success that you can without having it feel real and authentic to you. I have like an inkling that I'm just at the beginning of something big.
Well, could we talk about like the rumors of Lizzy for mayor?
Look.
Welcome to Inspired to Lead. We'd like to thank our friends at Roth & Co., innovators in accounting and business advisory, for making this conversation possible. We're coming to you from New York City. I'm your host, Talia Mashiach. Today, I'm joined by Lizzy Savetsky, Jewish activist. Lizzy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be here. We're here in your beautiful, beautiful home in New York City.
In the yucky weather, but we're inside, so it's okay.
It was definitely a challenge to try and go from the hotel to the car and out without getting wet, but I did it.
You look fantastic.
Thank
you didn't even wrinkle, and you're wearing silk.
Well, after I got off the plane and I was like, okay, I want to make sure that the hotel has a steamer, and I'm steaming the dress. So we made it. We're
here.
Look
incredible.
So it's really so nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. I'm so inspired by so many of the things that you're doing, and I'm really excited for you to share your story today.
Me too.
And excited to ask you some questions that maybe others haven't asked before.
Yeah, I'm excited too. When I heard about this podcast and that you're interested, I was like, women like business, and I was like, I guess what I do is a business. I just don't really think of it like that. And
well,
yeah,
we are excited. So let's dive in. First of all, I just want you to be able to share in your own words a little bit about yourself and what you do as a business.
You know, it's funny when people ask me for my title when I go to these events, I never know how to describe myself because I don't necessarily feel like I fit in one box. I used to say I'm a digital activist, but I'm not just digital. I'm out there in the streets. So I consider myself to be an advocate for the Jewish people, also for the state of Israel, which I feel like when I say the Jewish people, that should be all encompassing. Most people know me from my social media presence, which is just now my name, at Lizzy Savetsky on Instagram. And I feel like I don't necessarily fit into one specific category as an influencer. I just kind of live my life out loud and share whatever I'm doing, whatever matters to me. And for some reason, people care to watch.
Well, you know what? I want to talk a little bit more because I'm watching what you're doing. I actually really see it as a really important leadership role. And I want to get in a little bit and talk about what it is to come out, especially in this day and age, and to be a leader. But let's roll back a little bit and talk us a little bit about how you grew up, where you started, and how you got to this place in your life.
So I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. And I will tell you that I feel like from a very young age, like as young as I can remember, I had a craving for the spotlight, to be the center of attention. I was always entertaining all my parents' friends. I'd go to restaurants and I'd walk around to different tables of strangers and like ask if I could sing for them. Just like a little bit crazy, no shame, always putting myself out there. My parents were equal parts entertained and embarrassed by me, I think. My brother couldn't stand it. But I just was kind of like a natural born performer. I wouldn't say that I had the natural gift of talent, but I just had the drive.
What did you, when you were younger, what did you think you were going to become? Like when you thought,
a singer.
A singer. Okay.
Always.
Okay.
I still love music and I still love to sing. I have no desire to be a professional singer, but even up until I went to college and even through the beginning of college, I still thought that was my dream, to perform, to be a singer. And I just loved it. I came alive on stage in a way that I felt like I couldn't really recreate in the rest of my life. There were other things that I loved and that I was passionate about, but that feeling that I got from being on stage and being in front of an audience and having them in the palm of my hand and entertaining. I just loved it. And I had, I think that I had a gift more for entertaining than I did for singing. I was able to, I was savvy, and I figured out how to get good enough to put myself in the game. But it wasn't I wasn't like born. Some of these girls.
Did you do anything with singing like throughout or
Yeah,
performing?
I did. Well, first of all, in Texas, I convinced my dad and I had this deal that I was not allowed to do anything musical theater or performing until after my bat mitzvah, because I was in a secular school and I had to do all this training for my bat mitzvah. And he knew that if I got into all of the performance world, that my focus would be completely gone from my Hebrew studies. And so he made me a deal. He said, until you're 13, you're focused on your Hebrew studies. That was like the extracurricular, in addition to, the normal extracurricular stuff. As people know, when you get into performing, it's extremely time consuming.
Yeah.
That
if you're committed to it and you really want to be something.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we don't do things halfway. In my family, I think most Jewish people in general, we're just driven.
Yeah.
And so after my bat mitzvah, it was like a couple months later, I told my dad that I wanted to go to this audition for a country music show called the Johnny High Country Music Review. And my dad knew the show. It was a very famous show in our area. And he's like, Lizzy, you don't even know a country music song. Like, how is this going to work? And I was like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I was like, you have to uphold your end of the deal. And so he took me to this audition, and everyone there had probably come out of the womb wearing cowboy boots and singing country music. And I got up and I sang Tomorrow from Annie, because that was my best song.
That's great.
And they cast me on the show, and I ended up spending every weekend, middle school, high school, and then even when I would visit back home in Texas in college, singing on the show.
Oh, wow.
So that was my passion. Singing country music. I even learned how to yodel. I did everything.
Oh, good for you.
And then I was performing a lot throughout college, different rock clubs, jazz clubs, took a ton of music classes. One of my claims to fame was second place to the one and only Lady Gaga in our NYU talent show.
Wow.
Which she was far and away the best, but the fact that I was even in consideration next to her, and she was a good friend of mine and an incredible performer. So yeah, it was a huge part of my life, probably till I started becoming more religious.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, so I started dating, well, not really dating, I guess. I was interested in my now husband, Ira. We never really thought of each other as a potential real option for a spouse or for anything serious. We got introduced just by chance through a mutual friend on my 19th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And liked each other, kind of always crushed on each other from afar. And then once we started to really fall for each other, he threw me for a loop when he let me know that he was actually Orthodox and was only looking to pursue a serious relationship with a girl who was willing to also, live an observant life. And that was like speaking a foreign language to me. I didn't know anything, but I was interested. Judaism was always very important to me. I just never had the opportunity to really learn. And at the same time that he was kind of presenting me with this ultimatum, I was going through some personal stuff myself where I felt like I had been feeling really empty. I was spending a lot of time partying, running with a very glamorous, cool crowd, and everything looked really cool and edgy and awesome on the outside, but I felt just like this void inside of me was growing bigger and bigger.
Can we stop there for one second?
Yeah.
Because what you're touching on, I feel like so many people face today, and especially in your current role where everything does look really glamorous on the outside. I often find that sometimes the more glamorous it looks on the outside, the more empty it is on the inside. And I would love for you just to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, my mom sent me this quote a few years ago that I always think about, which is create a life that feels good, not one that looks good. And I always think about that because actually my girls were, my daughters, they're 13 and 11. And, I would love to tell you that, like, that they don't have access to social media, but that's not the kind of mom I am. And, they're very much aware of what I do and involved. And I involve them in my work as well. And they were talking about this one TikTok influencer that they follow that has this beautiful, glamorous life, but they met her and they were like, Mommy, but she's not happy. Mm-hmm. And they're young and they have an awareness that just because it looks good doesn't mean it feels good. And I think for me, it was really only going through hard things that made me realize that what it looks like doesn't actually matter at all. For me, it matters in the sense that I'm building a brand, that I'm creating something that people care to watch in that sense. But for my happiness, I'm probably, and this may come as a shock to people, but I'm probably one of the least materialistic people that you'll meet. Like, I have zero attachment to anything I own. I don't care. Like, I care about meaning and purpose and love and people. It's nothing that money can actually buy.
I think that's such an important message, and not just to send younger, because I have also a teenage daughter and I talk quite a bit about these things, and they're watching, they kind of have these ideas of what things should be because of what they're watching on, whatever influencers or commercial or whatever it is out there. And it's having to tell them the painful reality that what you see is not what really is.
No.
And I think what is so beautiful about Judaism is that it gives you something so much more.
Totally. That
fills you up. And yes, you could look beautiful unless you can have fun. And yes, there's so many things, but those are not going to be the things that really create the happiness within it. It doesn't create that feeling inside of meaning. And I think without meaning in life, then you have nothing. Like you say, stuff is nice for something. It's for a purpose, for something.
And I don't want to feel like I'm performing my life.
Yeah.
I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And as somebody who is by nature a performer, it becomes a gray area really quickly, and I have to check in with myself, because the God-sized hole, that's what I call it. Yeah. The God-sized hole can start to get bigger and bigger. And if I'm trying to fill that hole with external things, whether it's followers or attention or money or, a new bag or whatever, it just grows bigger and bigger. I need to fill that hole with God and with meaning and with love. So
that's so beautiful. And I think also sometimes people feel like they need things on the outside. So people are looking at the outside because they don't want to actually show the inside.
Or they don't want to look at it themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, and I think one of the things I'm seeing a little bit changing with social media is where a number of years ago when it started, it was very much about how to make it all perfect, and now I feel like people are done with that. Like even this next generation, they grew up that way. Like they're like, I know that's all fake. Show me the real.
Oh yeah. My girls all the time, they say, Mommy, why are you using a filter? I'm like, oh, because I didn't put my makeup on yet. They're like, but nobody cares, Mommy. Like, they're like, we know it's filtered.
Right. They know.
So they're turned off by it.
They want the genuine.
Yeah.
That's the shift, which is, I think is great. And we're seeing that just this next generation is completely different than the middle generation, that sort of all this stuff came out when they were in high school.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let's go back. So you met your husband and he told you, well, if this is going to go anywhere, you can for an,
Orthodox. And I was just like, I felt actually totally blindsided.
Yeah.
I was like, where has this been? And he brought up needing to get home to put on his tefillin before the sun went down. I'm like, wait, you put on tefillin? I was just shocked.
Yeah.
But I think he didn't want to reveal, he thought it would freak me out. And I wasn't freaked out. I actually very much respected it. I thought there was something very attractive about a man who was very career driven, who was about to start med school, who wanted to be a plastic surgeon, who still had the humility to know that he needed to stop his day and pray to God. And I thought that was beautiful, that he believes that there's something above him, bigger than him, that, he needs to pause and give devotion to. I thought that was cool because he was an FFB, as they say, from birth, never thought of it as cool, So anyway, what happened was, because I had this craving for meaning, I had the willingness and the desire myself, which I don't think it would work otherwise.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to take it really slow. So I emailed the one Orthodox person that I knew besides my husband, who I didn't even know was really Orthodox, who's my great uncle, who was like the black sheep of our family who decided to go to Ner Yisrael and become a rabbi and have 12 kids. And he was always reaching out to me. He lived in Baltimore. He was always reaching out to me when I was in New York saying, when are you coming for Shabbos? And I was like, never. I'm going out with my friends. And I never did. And I emailed him and I said, I'm dating this guy. He's Orthodox. What do I do? And he said, I'm going to introduce you to some people and they'll put you on the right path. And that's what happened. I got involved with the Jewish Outreach Organization at NYU. I ended up loving it. I started keeping Shabbat pretty quickly after. I just got involved with a bunch of young people like me who were also on this journey, and we were kind of all doing it together. I remember the first Shabbat I kept was in Passaic in New Jersey. It was a Shabbaton, and I was like, these people are crazy, but I'll try it. And I decided after I graduated from NYU, it was 2008, and the economy had just crashed. Nobody was getting a job. My parents were having me go around to all these different real serious type job interviews. I was doing it to appease them, but I really had no interest.
What did you want to do at that point?
At that point, I was trying to figure it out. Yeah. I knew that I wasn't pursuing singing professionally anymore. I didn't really feel that lit up by anything that was on the table. At the time, I was interviewing for jobs in development and fundraising and nonprofit because I knew that I was always very advocacy driven. I had been an activist for diversity education and awareness since my teenage years. And even all through college, I was in this scholars program at NYU, the MLK scholars program. And we would go around to all the different inner city schools in New York and do programming with them. And I loved it. And I thought my parents, they're Jewish minded and of course thinking practically. And they're like, well, go into fundraising.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't feeling it. And then my mom was trying to convince me to apply for grad school, but I didn't really know what I wanted to study. So I decided to take a year and go to Israel and learn in seminary. And so I went to Neve, and my parents thought this was crazy. This was not the plan. This is not the traditional path that they saw their daughter taking.
It's supposed to be go up, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, get the job.
Yeah.
Buy the house, have the car.
Yeah.
Have the kids and repeat.
And I had done everything by the book.
Yeah.
Like I had never made a B in my life. My family's motto was in our family, a B is like an F.
That's a lot of pressure.
I know. It was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I didn't make B's, we made A's, and I did everything right. And I wanted to do this for myself. I felt like I was never going to regret taking this year to just invest in myself. And I was lucky that I had these spiritual mentors that were kind of pushing me along this path. Because I just knew that there was something in me that knew that if I didn't take that pause, I was never going to get the inspiration I needed to make it stick.
And you're dating your husband still during this time?
I was dating my husband, and I had to go to him and tell him. He was in med school in Philly, and I had to go to him and tell him, I'm going to go to Israel for the year.
Yeah.
How do you feel about
How
this?
did he react?
He was like, well, I didn't mean for you to go to Israel for the year, But he understood. He understood that I was taking it very seriously, as I do everything. And so he supported it, but we were both committed to making it work. We both knew we wanted to be together, and he was committed to med school and I was committed to.
What was your highlight in Israel, that year there?
That's a good question. I feel like, I don't know if there's one specific moment that was a highlight, but I think just the fact that I did something that was against my parents' wishes, that I knew, it was the first time that I really trusted my own instincts. I really, really struggled to do that, even into marriage and adulthood, to trust myself, to trust my gut, to know that this was the right thing without the approval of my parents or the peanut gallery or everyone else, to just believe in it. And I did it, and I did this crazy thing, and I got it all funded. I didn't have to ask my parents for any money, and it ended up not being a disaster. And so I think that was such a good lesson for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily what I learned in the classroom at Neve. Of course, those were the building blocks that I needed to have an observant family. But my kids already know more than I know. So, I knew they were going to outdo me with their knowledge quickly. But it was more just that life lesson for myself.
When did you start to get into being into fashion and just an idea for that? Was that your first run, or was there something you tried before that?
I found a job at my husband's med school graduation dinner, one of his friends said, I saw a friend of a friend sent me this email about a job opening in fashion PR. Like, do you want to apply? And I was like, I have zero experience. Like, the only fashion experience I'd had was that I had worked at Abercrombie, like as a retail sales.
Were you into clothing and fashion as a kid?
Super into it, always.
Yeah.
And
so you just have a natural taste for it.
yeah. And I was making and selling headbands and jewelry just for fun, like a side hustle. I always loved fashion. I always loved, even as part of singing, so much of the performance for me was how I would present myself. And I loved it.
Was your mom into fashion or?
Zero.
Okay.
But my grandma, my dad's mom, was very into it. And she would take me to New York from 10 years old to do all my high holiday shopping. And
nice.
Yeah. So I loved it. And I thought it sounded fun, you know? And so...
Well, you found that you took a passion that you loved and said, how can I take a passion and turn it into a job?
Exactly.
Like that's amazing that you're able to figure that out.
Totally. So I didn't think I was going to get the job because I didn't have any experience. And I remember doing the research, and it's this big New York fashion PR firm. And I was doing the research about, I remember like going online to the World Wide Web back in 2009. There was no such thing really as social media even.
Yeah, no, not then.
So I couldn't even do like such a deep dive. And I saw that one of the brands that they represented was this brand Issa, which Kate Middleton had just worn a gorgeous blue dress, not unlike the one you're wearing now, for her engagement announcement photos. And that was this brand. It had just gone viral, blown up. And I had a dress in my closet that wasn't Issa, but looked like Issa. It was Tibby, and I bought it on sale at Bloomingdale's, and I said, okay, I'll wear this dress because it looks like the brand they represent. And the first thing that they said to me when I walked into the interview was, you're wearing Issa. And I said,
But which is really smart, by the way. I know you couldn't get that dress, but that your goal of it was to connect. Because when I always tell people when you're going into an interview, first of all, at least look up about the company, know about the company. Yeah. I know when I interview people, I'll ask them questions to understand how much they looked into us, which also tells you how much do you really want the job. Because
totally.
People want to hire people who really want the job.
100%.
And so if you're showing like attention to it, if you're showing interest in the specifics, like that's the best. So that's a great example.
Yeah. And it's just dress the part, you know? And even though I really didn't know anything about fashion PR, I actually didn't know anything about PR, period. I knew about fashion. I knew what dress to wear. I knew that they did fashion week.
Good instincts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, so I'll get to if I get this job, I'll get to go to fashion shows at Fashion Week. This is when Fashion Week was all the rage.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my dream. I remember calling my mom, like, I'll get to go to Fashion Week. And I was like, working, I'll get paid to be there. And I was so enamored of it all. Like I walked into the showroom and everything was so beautiful and displayed so nicely. And I just wanted to be a part of that world. It just looked so appealing to me. So I was just really motivated to get this job. And I knew that all I had to do was make the person interviewing fall in love with me, you know? And I was like, okay, I'm good with people and I can ask her some questions about herself. I can find some common ground. And that's what happened. You know, she ended up not even caring that I didn't know anything. She said, well, you're Ivy League. Thanks to my parents. Yeah. I was Ivy League, multicultural education, nothing to do with fashion, but sure. And I knew I'd be able to figure it out. You know, most of the time you're learning on the job anyway. You're not learning.
I want to add that because I think it's a really good point what you just brought up is that it goes for getting a job, but it also goes in sales when you're trying to sell something. Especially, I always tell people they're not especially if they're trying to sell to a company, you're never selling to a company, you're selling to a person. There's always a person. You're getting a job, it's a person who's going to hire you. And it's once they get in their head that they want that person, then they'll justify the gaps in resume. They'll justify why, even though you're charging a little bit more,
they'll be like, I like that girl.
Right. They want that.
They want to fight for you.
Yes. So I think that that's such an important example because it could be used across everything in business and in career and in relationships and everything. It's about don't think of it as a job for a company. Don't think about it as a company you're selling to. Think about it as a person you're working for. Think about it as a person you're selling to.
100%. Yeah. And I think 99% of success is relationships and being good with people.
Yeah.
You know, or just knowing how to connect.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes you got to do a little research to know. And sometimes it's like a natural capability that people just can connect right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in this case, it was both.
Yeah.
Because I knew the dress to wear. Because I think if I had shown up having, you know, no awareness of the company, I think that was the first impression, right? She's wearing the dress that looks like this brand we represent. And then it was, oh, and now I like her.
And also you're interviewing for a job in PR. Right. And PR is like paying attention to the small things, like what dress you're wearing. So the fact that you thought of that, I would think if I was the hiring manager, I'd be like, okay, she thought to wear the dress of the brand. She thinks like someone would in PR.
But I have to tell you that especially at the beginning of that job and even really throughout, I felt like an imposter. I felt like I was a phony trying to pretend to be a part of this world. It wasn't such a great feeling. You know, I was able to really navigate it and be savvy about it, but I felt inside like it was not the authentic me. You know, like I felt like a bit like I was performing, like I was playing the role, which worked.
Fake it till you make it.
Yes, it worked.
Sometimes you got to do that. I think women are much more uncomfortable doing those types of things, but that's sometimes what you got to do to take new opportunities.
100%. Yeah. And you have no idea what doors it's going to open, because if I hadn't taken that job, everything in my life has led me to doing this work that I could not imagine not doing, that I love with my entire heart and soul. But that job is a huge part of why I ended up here.
Yeah. So from that job, did you wind up doing
So from that job, part of my job was to work with what they called bloggers at the time. This is before Instagram. To work with bloggers, to seat them at our shows, to send them clothing from the designers we represented and engage with them. And so I was researching about who these girls were and what a blog was. And as I was doing this, I was like, wait, I'm a much better writer than 90% of these girls that are successful, and they're getting free clothes. They're getting seated front row at these shows. I'm like, I should have a blog. Like, I'm just going to start one.
Good for you.
And I remember I went to my bosses and I was like, I think I'm going to start an accessories blog because I love accessories. And I was like, it'll be great for everyone, because one of the biggest clients that we had was Erickson Beeman Jewelry. I was like, I'll be promoting the jewelry. I'll promote all of our designers. And you guys can use me like when you're clipping press to make the clients happy. And I was like, it'll be a win-win for everyone. And they thought it was a great idea. Yeah, I sold it to them. And, so I started a blog and I put so much time and energy into it. I taught myself how to make a Squarespace website. I had a friend that had a professional camera. We did like a photo shoot for the backdrop and everything. And I wasn't taking any pictures of myself because like the iPhone, I don't
even think you had.
I didn't have an iPhone.
It was no such thing as like a selfie.
I didn't have anything.
That didn't exist.
No.
Right?
So I was just pulling imagery from the web.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, today I'm going to write an article about clogs and why I think they're making a comeback. And then I would just pull like images from Google.
Yeah.
And write articles and then
super scrappy.
Super scrappy.
I love it.
And a girl who worked under me, I think she may have been an intern or an assistant, said, Lizzy, why aren't you on Instagram? I said, what's Instagram? She said, you don't know what Instagram is? And she like pulls up her phone and she shows it to me. And I was like, oh, this is cool. You can filter your photos with like a million different filters. I'm like, oh, that one's cool. Like lo-fi. I thought it was an app to edit your photos. I didn't understand.
It did start that way, I think. Okay, can I tell you a funny story? So I was raising venture capital money in Silicon Valley. Okay, so when was it? It was probably around the same time, and just I guess it was like 2011.
Yeah.
So 2012.
Yep, 2011.
Okay, and I remember meeting with a VC who was interested in my company, and I was talking to him about what are the other things that he's investing in. And he mentioned Instagram, and he's like, and it was an app to be able to edit your photos. And I'm like, why would anybody want that?
I wanted it.
But I was like, I didn't understand it at the time. And I think back, I'm like, wait, he was one of the early investors in Instagram. But at the time, it was such a new concept. But I think it did start as editing your pictures to begin with.
Totally. And I loved it because I was like getting to see how Valencia or Lo-Fi or Hefe, all the different filters made my same photo look. That was like very poor, grainy iPhone photo, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started it. I didn't really understand it, you know? And I remember she was like, oh, but you need to follow people. And I'm like, follow people? What do you mean like follow? Like I had no idea. Yeah. And I felt like it dinosaur
Yep.
in this world.
It's kind of like how a lot of people are feeling right now with all the AI
Oh.
coming, and you're like, wait, what? What's an autonomous agent? What's an assistant? What's a prompt? Like
Yeah,
that's what it was like at that time.
exactly. It was I had no idea anything. But I started an Instagram account because this girl told me to, and it was easy. I just downloaded the app and whatever. I thought, okay, well, maybe this will help me drive traffic to my blog. And so I didn't understand even how to use it. I would literally take a screenshot of my website, my blog, accessoriesexpert.com, with like the article about clogs, and post that to my Instagram and be like, check out my blog post.
Okay.
That's
there you
how
go.
and then I started she was like, no, people want to see what you're wearing. At the time I was pregnant with my second daughter, and I'm like, wait, like they want to see my pregnant she's like, yeah, just take a picture of your outfit every day. So I started doing it, and people liked it. And that's sort of how it all kind of happened. And then ultimately, I would say like within the next 3 years, I began to understand that my blog was kind of obsolete. Nobody was reading it. And it's kind of a bummer because I really enjoyed writing these articles, but nobody cared. They all just cared about my Instagram. So I just moved all of my effort to that platform.
And could we talk about what that was like for you when you first started kind of that taking pictures, having to share your life with everyone? I know you said you're an entertainer, so I imagine some of that, but like, was that what it was like? Was it fun for you? Did you enjoy it? Was it stressful? Like, what was it like at the beginning?
At the very beginning, I wouldn't say that it was super stressful. I bought a camera pretty early on, and I remember getting in fights with my husband because he didn't understand like how to use the settings on the camera, and like all the pictures would come out blurry. I remember it was like I didn't have a photographer. Like it was my husband who's in residency and super busy, and he would give me 5 minutes to take my picture and it would come out bad. And I remember that being stressful, and then having to plug the camera in. There was no wireless cameras, like plug the camera into the computer to get the pictures. And
were you supporting you and your husband during this time with your job, since he was like until he got to residency? Because I know like my son-in-law is in medical school going in for orthopedic surgery, and my daughter works very hard because he is not a second to make any money.
Yeah. And this is another important point. Like I knew that bloggers were making money through like banner ads on their websites, but I never anticipated that I would ever make $1 from my blog or from my Instagram. I just thought it would give me access, which is what I wanted. I wanted to get...
Because you were still on the career path also within your job, right? And you had fun getting all this free stuff.
Yeah, totally. I just was like
the goal.
It was fun, you know? I just wanted to be like important enough to get the goods. I didn't think it would be a career.
It's a great like way to be able to fund your fashion.
Totally.
You know, passion.
That is what that exactly how I saw it. I was like, I'll get these clothes that I'll wear to all these events that I have to work, and it just kind of was this awesome cycle.
Very scrappy.
Yeah.
Lizzy.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, so I was counting on my paycheck. Yeah, very much. And there came a point around 2015, 2016, where my husband was like, you really should take your social media stuff full time. And I was like, you are insane. Like, you're in residency. You're telling me I should leave my job where I have a steady income to just do this full time. And he was like, Lizzy, I'm telling you, if you don't do it and you don't go all in, you'll never know.
Wow.
But I never would have believed in myself to make that leap. And my parents also, again, thought this was absolutely insane. But my husband's a little bit insane, but I think it serves him well, and it has served me well, because if you almost have to take those kinds of risks, you have to be a little bit crazy.
But you also need to have somebody near you and close to you that's going to support you. Like, I don't know too many people who took big risks without having somebody who was close to them, like in their support circle. And I think a lot of people don't take the risks that they would love to take because they don't have anyone around them telling them, you should go do this, you can do this, you know, and that's like such an important part. And when people say, oh, you want to be an entrepreneur? For me, I always have my parents were very supportive of, definitely also the traditional minded of like college, you know, whatever, but very much like you could be anything you want to be. And, you know, and my husband's been incredibly supportive of everything that I've wanted to do. And there was just no way that I could have had this entrepreneurial journey without it. So you're so lucky that you had your husband
100%.
to be able to be like, you can do this. And
I would
take that.
still be working in the fashion PR job. If he didn't encourage me and push me, because I would have never thought that I would have been able to really be a success.
That's amazing. So what happened when you were like, did you have to figure out how you were going to make money from it first before you dropped your job? Or did you figure it out
I was already starting to make money. I wouldn't have just quit if I wasn't already making money. I was making money mostly through brands paying me to promote their items organically, which was cool and easy and made sense. And I think it was really strange in the beginning for people to really understand. Like, my parents couldn't wrap their mind around why somebody was going to give me stuff and also pay me, for me to take a picture with their handbag. And
so do they give you, you get to keep all the stuff and typically in at that time you got items
usually,
and you got paid?
Yeah, usually. And I remember, I think the first paid partnership that I had was a handbag company called Hammett.
How'd you get that? How'd you get your first paid?
Again, hustling.
Yep.
Part of my job in the fashion PR stuff was doing the social media for the big trade shows at the Javits Center. So as an aspiring fashion blogger, I would go around to all the booths and all the vendors and introduce myself, and I had made myself business cards. I am a blogger. I'm an accessories expert. If you have any samples that you'd like to send me, if you want me to feature your products, and they would send, it worked.
Oh.
They would send me stuff because, and in the beginning I was doing it totally for free, and I would even borrow things. Can I borrow that to shoot? Sure, of course. You're going to give it back and give me promotion. Sure. And so I was just hustling and making connections. And once I had developed enough of a following, I think I got my first paid gig was $400 from this handbag company. And I could not believe it that I was getting actual money. And then the second partnership I got was a sunglasses promotion that was $800. And I remember I was home in Texas and my dad took the pictures and he was telling my grandma, he's like, she's getting paid $800 for these photos.
Well, let me ask you though, how many years in was this from the time that you started the Instagram account?
Oh. Hi.
Okay. I just have to I wanted to stop a second because we just wound up pausing our interview. You didn't see it because we edited it out, but we're sitting in Lizzy's home and her kids just came home from school and it was so cute. And they walked in and of course for them, they're just like, Mom, I came home from school. I want to see you. So I just and I said, Lizzy, you got to stop and go say hello to your kids because this is something that all of us really balance also is our family. Everyone sees the kind of how we are in work and but they're not knowing that you're also kids' mom. So
totally,
I just it was beautiful to see them. And I think it's so important, and I celebrate that we really need to. Our most important job, I think, that we do is to be a mom.
100%. And I used to have a lot of guilt. I remember there was one year I had to miss their first day of school because I was traveling for a speech, and I would feel so bad about it. And then somebody said to me, you need to reframe that because you're setting an example for them. You're showing them that you can do it all. And then when you're present with them, you're there, and they understand now. They've never once, resented my work. I guess that's not the proper way to put it, but they love that I work hard. They love that people know who I am and respect my work.
And it's not a difference in this world.
Yeah. And it's not always easy. Of course they would love for me to give them my full undivided attention right now, but they understand.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because I really think that's such an important part of everything that we do. So kind of taking us back to where we were before we had such a great little break. So I wanted to go back to being paid. So I asked you, how
many years?
Yeah. How many years from the time you started the Instagram until you got your first paid, and how many followers do you had at that point?
I think it was 2 years, but you have to understand within those 2 years that Instagram didn't exist at the beginning. So, it was not just me starting, but it was the whole industry itself kind of starting.
One of the early.
Yeah. And so there was nothing really, and the funny thing is my husband was saying to me the other day, he's like, you thought you were late
Yeah.
to the party because I didn't understand how to work it as a vehicle in terms of a business in the way that other influencers did until what I felt like was late, but it was, I mean, it was obviously early. This was like 2014 by the time I figured it out. By the time that I had 2014, I hit 5,000 followers, which felt like a lot at the time.
Yeah.
Because just getting to that first hurdle. And then I think it took me a full year to go from 5 to 10. Like I see people now that grow these huge followings.
Well, there's so many more people on it now. At that time, that was probably a large percentage based on the number of people that were on it.
Yeah.
So getting that $400 and $800. How did you go from, okay, here's my business card and just lend me your stuff or give me your stuff to seeing that you could offering to, did they say, I'll pay you? Or did you finally get to a point where you said, you know what, I can charge?
No, I didn't. I didn't start asking for money for a bit. It was them coming to the table with the offer.
Were you like, well, you want to pay me? Or were you expecting it at that point?
No, I was shocked. I was like, LOL, oh my God, this is actually a business. Like people, and I mean, I was laughing at myself. I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to take pictures of myself wearing things. Like I thought that was crazy. And cool, but no, I didn't feel entitled to that at all. I didn't feel entitled. I felt very lucky that I was getting compensated, period. Like it felt like throwaway money to me. I was still working.
Yeah.
And then the big turning point for me was in 2019. I took on a management company, or a management company took me on.
How did they come to you?
Yeah, they came to me. They approached me and said that they wanted to sign me and that they were going to help me get deals. And that changed things because it felt much more like a job. Like I had a manager that I spoke to every day and I knew what deals are in the pipeline and I was getting brand deals that, I wouldn't have gotten without them. And it just felt like more official.
Yeah.
I didn't feel just like I really, up until 2019, I felt like I was just like in the Wild West,
and like a passion project for you.
Yeah, it was
a full-time job.
It was exactly. And I was getting attention. I was speaking on panels and I was building this following, and I knew that people cared what I wore, and but I didn't feel like a job until that point.
Very cool. So they found you, which is awesome. You're like, so some of these things probably, what was one of the hardest things, do you remember during that time, that one of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome to get to, it sounds like that was the turning point, was the management company, but was there anything you remember during that time that was like you really had to figure out and overcome, or did it kind of flow pretty easy at that point?
I think the hardest thing for me was not looking at what everyone else was doing, because there was a period of time where I was trying to just copy what the successful people were doing. I just think it's very clear when you're doing that, it doesn't land because it's not authentic. And I was forcing it so hard. I would do these photo shoots with these other bloggers and we would all take basically the same photo and you do these, and I always felt so uncomfortable with that. I just didn't feel like myself. And I feel like it kind of showed through, and it was like, use this filter and use this preset and do this formula and you'll be successful. And it wasn't working for me. And I was getting frustrated with that. And then what happened was, even before I had signed with the management company, 2017, 2018, I made this really impulsive decision was the start of Instagram stories. Because at the beginning, it was just the grid and these curated pictures. And then once stories happened, it was an opportunity for me to really connect with my audience in a much less filtered way, just talking. And I saw that people really responded to me when I was just myself. And
how'd that make you feel?
It made me feel good because it came so easily. And, I had always kind of lived out loud and performed. I even had a blog dating back to 2009 called Lizrael, about me documenting my time in Israel. I just was kind of for my friends and family. And it felt easy for me. Talking to a camera, to a phone, was a muscle that I needed to exercise and learn how to get comfortable with. I don't think it's easy or natural to anyone to do this. I think it's just one of those things. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. But I remember like seeing other bloggers do it and I'm like, they look crazy. And then I became one. But it was like getting the feedback of people. I think there's like something voyeuristic about it, that people are curious. They want to see what you're up to or what you're doing that day. And I wouldn't talk about anything so significant. I'd be like, hey guys, today I'm going to take Ollie, or I didn't have Ollie yet, Juliet to the dentist and yada, yada. And people like were engaged and they were like invested in my kids. They'd be like, how's her tooth? You know? And they cared. And I'm like, this is so weird, but so easy. So I'll just keep doing it. Just felt natural and easy.
Were there likes at that time and things like that?
There were likes on the grid, but not on stories. And
was there like a constant, and even today, like in your mind of, wait, how many likes, or do people like it? And that you're sometimes feeling like you're having to live your life for your followers to like, or...
I'll tell you, when I was posting content that did not feel authentic to me, which I was doing for a long time to try to play the game, because, you know, that's what I knew how to do, play the game. Oh, I want to be successful at this. I do what the other people did to be successful. When I was doing that, I cared so much about the likes, and I would get so frustrated when I saw it worked for other people and it didn't work for me. But now that I'm 100% myself and just putting out what I believe in, I never hardly even look. You know, like my husband will tell me, oh my God, your video got so many, like 1 million views. And I'm like, oh, it did? Like, I don't even care.
So that leads us into that turning point
of
being, you know, incredibly successful and popular with your fashion, as a fashion influencer. And then October 7th happened, right?
So actually, interestingly, I made the full pivot to advocacy in the spring of 2021.
Oh, wow.
So a couple years before October 7th, which was not intentional. It wasn't something that I planned to do. It just sort of happened because Israel was attacked by a barrage of rockets from Hamas. And it was the first time that I remembered seeing on social media my peers, my fellow influencers, celebrities. I knew that Israel was demonized in the media and in the news, but I hadn't seen it on social media from people like me out there posting this vicious propaganda and lies about Israel after Israel had just been attacked.
Yeah.
And I was really shaken up about it. And I felt like I had to do something, but I also really did not feel equipped. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't go to school for Middle Eastern studies or the history of the conflict or even religious. Like, I just felt it felt so above my pay grade. Like, I just didn't know. I was just like a passionate person who knew how I felt about Israel and knew that what I was seeing was not true. And it was a bit of a life-changing, just 1 second life-changing moment. Like, you can look back on your life and you knew that that's when everything just took a turn. And that's how that was for me. I was seeing all this hate from people that I loved and respected and knew that I had to say something and do something. And of course I did. And I knew there was going to be consequences. I didn't expect them to come so fast and furious. Like, within the day of my first post for Israel was getting my first death threats.
Wow.
I never thought about putting my children on my Instagram. They were always a huge part of my content. And suddenly people are telling me that they want to kill my kids.
Such darkness.
Yeah. And and then so what happened was within a few weeks, I got dropped by that management company that had been, they were really had been taking.
And they probably made a lot of money off of you over those years and done well.
And it honestly, it wasn't malicious at all. I remember the phone call very well with the head of brand partnerships. And she said, look, Lizzy, you are going in a different direction now. I cannot market you to middle America brands who are selling sheets or bloat pills, or she said, it's just not marketable what you're doing. And she said, but I think this is your calling. She said, I see it in your videos and in your posts. You have to keep doing this. She said, I don't know what you're going to be doing. Maybe you're going to go into politics. I thought she was insane at the time. Now maybe she's right. I don't know. But
well, we hear rumors there may be Lizzy for mayor.
Who knows? But, this is 2021 and I didn't know what I was doing. And at the same time that I got dropped by my management company, I was getting asked to speak at my first rally, which I thought was crazy. It was this pro-Israel rally, and we were living in Dallas at the time.
Is your husband a doctor yet?
My husband was in his fellowship.
Okay, so you're still not really having that much money to live on for your family.
No.
So you were still really relying on this job.
My income.
Yeah. Income.
Yeah, and it was really scary. Like, I remember all those conversations with my husband very well. Like, am I going to do this? And it was, well, how can I not? It didn't feel really like a choice. It felt like a calling. And I just felt scared because I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. And I don't like that feeling. I have felt like I had sort of just started to master the fashion influencer thing. And then all of a sudden the rug was ripped out from underneath me and I had to suddenly figure out how to become successful in this field that didn't even really exist yet, which is
But it kind of sounds like the rest of your journey where you were, had an opportunity, that's something you were passionate about. And even though you didn't know what to do or how to do, you're like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to figure it out.
I was yeah.
As I'm listening to your story.
Figure it out.
But that's like amazing. And I think that's such an inspiring part of your story because I've now heard it 3 times at least. I mean, even just the fact that you're the guy you wanted to marry, wanted to, have an Orthodox, family. And you're like, okay, I'm going to figure,
I'll move to Israel. I'll figure it out.
Move to Israel. I want this job in fashion. I never did PR. I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah.
Instagram. I've never done it. I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah.
So to me, that says a lot about you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think I knew what I wanted. I just needed to figure out how to get there,
So you made this big decision to walk away from the income that you were really primarily supporting your family with to do something that you felt was so meaningful and something that you were incredibly passionate about. Yeah.
And I felt like it was kind of an emergency situation because I didn't really see anyone else in my space doing it. There were no other mainstream influencers defending Israel on Instagram. And I felt like, how do we have nobody doing this? And then, I started to connect with other people who were a little bit ahead of me in the game. Noah Tishby, Eve Barlow. These people kind of held my hand. And it wasn't a competition. It was like we were all fighting the same battle. And Noah Tishby's book, Israel, had come out in April of 2021. The attack that propelled my advocacy journey happened in May. And so this book became my resource. I learned everything that I needed to know, or everything that I needed to know for the content I was making. And I was also understanding what kind of content resonated, which was the opposite of curated. It was, let me just get on my phone immediately and film a video about breaking news. Or let me, Vogue is platforming Gigi Hadid donating her Fashion Week salary to the oppressed people in Palestine. Where's Palestine? Let me make a video about that and call out Vogue. And it was just much more shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
No planning, just reactive.
Epic.
Yes.
And meaningful.
But then it was the question of how am I going to make money?
Yeah.
So
what did you do? How did you make that shift and make money?
There is luck, of course, involved in this. As much as I believe that I worked really, really hard and I was savvy and I was committed, I also had good fortune, which was that I had attended this Hanukkah party and Sheila Nazarian was this really well-known public figure. And she's a plastic surgeon. She was on a reality show, whatever. She was doing a ton of speaking. I was starting to get a few speaking gigs here and there on my own already. And my management company, before they dropped me, I was doing this before even 2021. My management company, before they dropped me, were negotiating those fees for me. And it was kind of weird. I remember I was getting paid $6,000 to go speak for Birthright, flying to New York for a few nights, come back. I never thought that, again, that would be a career. But Sheila told me that her speaking agent wanted to talk to me. And so I had a call with this guy named Jamie. And it really, like the management company in 2019, the speaking agent in 2021 was like the exact segue that I needed to give me the confidence to keep going. And I started booking speeches right and left. And I was traveling everywhere. And this is before October 7th. And I was already really positioning myself as not necessarily like an expert in the field, but just as a proud Jewish voice, unapologetic, and somebody who, cared about empowering and mobilizing my fellow Jews. And and I loved it. Felt like a dream.
A lot of people, I think, are really scared to stand up for things that they believe in, especially when they have such a huge sort of following. What was that for you? Like, does that even come to mind? And I'm sure you walk down the streets of New York, everybody knows who you are. Like, there is a price to pay for all of this. So I'm just curious, like, what is that for you?
It's a heavy price, but it's never been a question of if it would stop me from doing it. It's difficult to be on the receiving end of so much scrutiny. And, being in the public eye is really tough. Because people have an opinion about everything you do, everything you say, everything you wear. I didn't know that I had big ears until I had haters on Instagram, which I only had when I started posting about Israel. So like now I'm self-conscious about my ears. This is just like a tiny thing. And it's, I still wear my hair up.
You look
and whatever.
beautiful.
Well, thank you. But it's just, that people have an opinion about everything. It took me a really long time to understand that I was never going to please everyone. I have to say that for the most part, when I walk down the street, I am only met with positive feedback. In person, people are generally very, very nice, to the point that it even makes me feel like uncomfortable, because I feel like unworthy of the praise that people will cry when they see me. And I know maybe it's what I represent, the bravery that they see in me. But I don't feel like some hero. I just feel like God gave me a platform, and I, of course I was going to use it. I never felt like it was heroic. It just felt like the right thing to do. But the public eye stuff, there was no manual for how to be a public figure on Instagram defending Israel when everyone is spreading all these lies about it. Like, I didn't know how to deal with all of that. And it took a toll for sure on my mental health. Throughout this journey, I hit my rock bottom with my alcoholism. I ended up getting sober, thank God. And I was doing all of this like while still living a very public life. And it was challenging, but over time, and it's something I'm still working on, had to let go of that external pressure and like just keep my eye focused on the mission. Like I have to remind myself daily, like, this isn't about me, this is about the mission. Like, am I propelling the mission forward? If the answer is yes, like, we're good.
Do you ever think about that? I see even how you described it before when you were the fashion world, and even many of the Instagram influencers today, they're kind of living their life for everybody else. And like the shift, even though for you it sounds like you were just always doing something that you loved, but really so much of that of your life was shared. And I think what I see is like a sense of courage, and a tremendous sense of courage. And you've even sort of shared that, well, when I was doing everything for everyone else, it was hard and it was difficult. And then as soon as I switched and I was doing it for me, like, it became much easier to do. I think a lot of people can be really inspired to take that step, to live their life in a way that is meaningful and for themselves and for what they were meant to be. Like, I always believe that God gives everybody a toolkit, and our responsibility is to use that toolkit to give back to the world in some way. And I mean, that's why I do this podcast. That's why I'm hosting. Like, I feel like I've been given the gift of having incredible business experiences. And so, curiosity and understanding, and like, how can I give back in a way to the world? And I think everybody has something that they can do, but most people never have the courage to stop living their life for everybody else and to start living their life for their purpose of why they're here. And as I'm talking to you, that's so much of what I'm hearing from you.
100%. I feel like when you're a smart person, a driven person, you can probably become successful at whatever you set your mind to. But you will never achieve the level of success that you can without having it feel real and authentic to you. You know, there's just a different level. When I stopped feeling like an imposter, it wasn't until I started with the Jewish advocacy stuff on Instagram that I finally felt like myself. And I felt like I could just show up as me unapologetically, and I didn't have to pretend or perform. And it felt amazing. And like, you know, if I felt like I wanted to share bits and pieces of my personal life, fine, but I didn't have to. You know, I didn't feel that same pressure. I just was doing it for myself. Yeah. And that's when I stopped caring about the likes, and I stopped caring about the approval and the praise, and, you know, and everything blew up. Like everything got so much better and bigger, and I became so much more well known and respected. All I did was live my truth out loud. And it was really that simple, you know, but it was scary.
Very. And most people don't have the courage to do it. So I hope that people who are listening, if there's one thing they walk away from this, listening to this episode, is like really being inspired to have the courage to go do something really meaningful and feeling like their purpose. So what's next for you? Like where do you see yourself?
Well, you know, when people ask me that, I never know what to answer, because I never thought I'd be here. You know, this is so not the path. Like, and it's taken so many twists and turns throughout. And one of those turns has led me here. But to try to predict what's next, I mean, I have no idea. It could be politics. It could be Mashiach. It could be Aliyah. Like, I really don't know. I know that I have like an inkling that I'm just at the beginning of something. I don't know. Something big.
Well, could we talk about like the rumors of Lizzy for mayor?
Yeah, you know, look, it was never a dream that I had to go into politics. It kind of scares me. But I also feel like our political world right now is being overtaken by young, driven people whose values don't necessarily align with our values. And if we don't step up, you know, we've spent so much time and energy investing in becoming successful in all these other fields. And, you know, we have failed to do so in the political world. And it's just it's like my husband always says to me, he's like, Lizzy, if it's not you, who's it going to be? It's going to be some idiot, you know? And why not? You know, I've done crazier things, I feel like, throughout my life that made not a lot of sense on the surface that ended up making a lot of sense. So I just don't know. I'm terrified of it, but maybe that's good.
Well,
I don't know.
If we think about the journey that we watched, and, you know, you're coming up with something that you are nervous to do, but takes a tremendous amount of courage, but could have so much impact. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me based after this that, you know, we saw you in a major political role.
I feel like it would be a really great adventure. And if nothing else, I would learn a lot, you know, and I don't think that I would regret that experience. The one thing that really does draw me back is the amount of time that it would take me away from my family, because I feel like I'm already so busy, but I'm sure there's a way to figure that out, you know?
All right, Lizzy, I've got a couple of quick questions for you.
Okay.
Our fast five.
Okay.
All right. What was the biggest mistake you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Deciding to go on The Real Housewives of New York. And my gut told me from the very beginning that it was not a good idea, but I let all these other voices tell me that it would be the right thing to do for XYZ reason. It ended up exploding, and there were a lot of really negative things that happened when I walked away from the show. And there was a rock bottom point in that period that I thought maybe we wouldn't recover from. And I realized that you can bounce back from anything, and that it didn't take me that long, you know? So if you're in a low point, just keep going. Just pick yourself up, believe that everyone will move on because they have very short memories in this day and age. Keep going and doing what you love. Do not go into hiding.
What was the moment you felt like you hit rock bottom, and how did you climb out?
Absolutely, with my alcoholism and addiction stuff. I hit rock bottom in the summer of 2021, right after I had started full-time with the Israel advocacy stuff. I think I was destined to hit rock bottom at some point with the addiction stuff, but it was receiving all the death threats and this whole new... I knew that like this journey that I was taking with the Israel advocacy was so big and it was so intense and overwhelming. And the only coping mechanism I had ever had was drinking and escaping. And so I hit rock bottom pretty quickly. And I think it was a gift from Hashem, because my motivation to get sober was literally that I felt like I have this huge mission to do. And if I don't deal with my own demons, I'm never going to be able to achieve the purpose that God created me for. And so I was like motivated to get clean. And it's something that is the hardest thing that I've ever done. It is something that I continue to do. I'm deeply committed to my sobriety program. And I have just over 4 years. I had 4 years in August. And it's my most precious possession in my life.
What sacrifices did no one see you make to get to where you are?
I would say very, very lonely days and nights at home, being married to a resident with 2 little young babies that were 19 months apart, trying to build a brand and trying to raise them and trying to stay sane. You know, it was really, really tough. And if there's anyone out there that is married to a physician or somebody else who has a really demanding career, and you're going to all these weddings and events and trying to push through by yourself, I see you. You are not alone, and it gets better.
Okay, I just have to because I'm watching, as I shared with you, my daughter go through my son-in-law's in his last year of medical school. And this past summer, he had to do away rotations and he was gone. She has 3 little kids. She's pregnant with her 4th, and he was gone for 2 months straight. He had to go 2 months straight, was not home, did not come home. And it's
like they're in the army, but they're not actually like fighting for.
But there's no time to even call because he was busy all day. Like she had 5 minutes, and she went to be able to visit one weekend, and he almost didn't get back for Shabbos because and she was like, I came here with all the kids to see you. We have not seen you in a month. Figure out how you're getting home for Shabbos.
Pain. I remember that feeling. Oh my God.
And she supports the family. And so she was working this whole time doing everything. I'm like so proud of her. So happy I was able to be there to support her, but so proud of her.
Can I just say though, like when you're in that darkness, you cannot believe that it gets better, that it's going to end. Like I remember when Ira finally was on the other side of fellowship and had like a normal job and could make his own hours and his own schedule. It took me over a year to even grasp that we had control over our own lives, because I was so resentful of him, but it wasn't his fault. He didn't have control over his.
I think a lot of people would look at you today and beautiful home and big life and, plastic surgeon and big influencer and think, and I really hope that people understand nobody becomes like that from nothing. Nobody just gets it handed to them. The sacrifice, the hard work,
totally,
the effort it takes to get to that. And I think that is, thank you for sharing that part of the story with
100%. Yeah. And, I have no problem. I always say I have no issue with Nepo babies or with people whose parents or families, have given them like a boost or whatever, but that's just not our story. We were very much loans and, we were piecing it together, just one paycheck at a time. And it was difficult, but amazing. It's also such a beautiful feeling to build something.
So much more meaningful.
Yeah.
All right. A couple last questions for you. What was the scariest financial risk you ever took?
I would have to say quitting my job to do the blogging and Instagram full time. I think that was insane to go from having a steady paycheck to like hustling paycheck to paycheck, connection to connection for work. But if I hadn't done that, I would, like I said, I would still be working in my fashion PR job. So
what's your superpower?
I think I'm absolutely relentless and I obsess over what I want until I get it, until I figure out how to get it. I just do not take no for an answer from the universe, from other people, from opportunities. If I want it, there's nothing that will get in my way.
And what would you tell your younger self?
I would say, hang on tight because this is going to be a really wild ride. And you have no idea where this road is leading you. Just trust the journey. Trust the journey and enjoy it because every single part of it is beautiful.
And final message to our listeners today.
Take the time to invest in yourself and figure out who you are and what makes you tick and what lights you up. Really take that time for yourself because it will dictate the rest of your life and that journey that you'll be on and everything that you do. And it's just such a much better life when you have your why, and without knowing who you are, you can't have your why. You don't know what your purpose is. So take that time and invest in yourself. Don't feel like it's selfish, because without that investment in yourself, you can't give the gifts to the world that you were put here to give.
That's a beautiful message. Lizzy, thank you so much for sitting down. Thank you for welcoming me into your beautiful home. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I'm like walking away feeling very inspired and also much more educated on the effort and work it is to do what you do. It is really hard. And thank you for being such an incredible leader, a leader that we need, having the courage to be a voice for everybody else who doesn't have the courage to be that voice. And I have no doubt that whatever you set your mind to, you will be successful. So if you go into politics, I would just warn anyone who's going up against you, be careful.
I love that. Thank you. My husband's going to love that.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure.
This episode was made possible by our friends at Roth & Co. We are grateful for their continued partnership. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you'll join us for the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch this conversation on YouTube, so be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until we meet again, stay inspired to lead.